Los Angeles, the set of Jimmy Kimmel Live, the evening of April 12, 2025. The soft light of the spotlights gently falls on the stage where Robert De Niro stands, gazing into the audience. His eyes glisten and his voice, hoarse and steady, cuts through the silence. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," he says, each syllable sounding like a promise. "I don't find strength. I just remember the people I loved. And I perform for them. For you." In the third row, an elderly man with a gray beard wipes away a tear, his hands trembling. A woman beside him squeezes his shoulder, and the audience, 100 people, most over 55, falls still, as if the world has stopped. Some quietly sob, others smile through tears. This is not just a talk show. This is a moment when the masks fall. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's jump into it. Los Angeles, Friday evening, April 12, 2025. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio is alive and warm, like a summer night. Outside, Hollywood signs flicker. The scent of hot asphalt mixes with the aroma of coffee drifting from the dressing room. Inside the studio, there's a soft hum of air conditioners, the gleam of stage lights, and the low murmur of an audience, mostly people over 55, dressed in cozy cardigans and holding glasses of soda. Tonight's guest is Robert De Niro, whose new drama about family ties and forgiveness has already won over critics and touched the hearts of audiences. Everyone is waiting for a conversation that promises to be special. Backstage, Jimmy Kimmel, dressed in a sharp blue suit with a perfectly tied tie, flips through notes and tosses jokes at his crew. His smile beams, his eyes shine. This is peak season. The ratings are climbing, and the audience adores his way of making the evening feel as cozy as a kitchen table chat. Tonight, he knows he's holding a trump card, De Niro. People want to hear about his life, his inspiration, what lies behind the legendary actor's mask. And Jimmy is ready to give them that. Robert De Niro stands nearby, in a dark blazer and white shirt, holding a glass of water. He's calm, but his fingers tap lightly, an old habit that betrays his tension. Talk shows aren't his favorite place, but Kimmel seems genuine. For now. "Ready, Bob?" Jimmy asks, patting him on the shoulder. "Just no nonsense, all right?" Robert replies, but the corner of his mouth twitches in a smile. "I promise, only the good stuff." Jimmy laughs, and the tension melts like sugar in tea. 2 minutes to air, an assistant shouts. The crowd hums, the lights flare, and Jimmy bounds onto the stage. Broadcast. Jimmy's monologue is like a warm breeze. He jokes about the retro TV show craze, about how his mom still calls him with health tips, and about a new coffee shop where a cup costs as much as his first car. The crowd roars with laughter and claps. The atmosphere is light and homey. Jimmy's in his element, and the audience feels it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, a man whose films we turn to whenever we want to feel something real, Robert De Niro. He announces, and the room erupts in applause. Robert walks on, waves, and takes a seat on the couch. His smile is reserved, but his eyes are warm. The first few minutes go smoothly. Jimmy asks about the new movie, about how Robert prepared for the role of a father trying to regain his daughter's trust. Robert talks about the filming, tosses in a few funny stories about younger actors trying to outact him. The audience laughs and applauds. "Bob, this film is so human," Jimmy says, leaning in. "Everyone's saying you poured your soul into it. Where do you find inspiration for roles like this? It's not just acting, right?" Robert nods, his gaze softening. "Life, Jimmy. You live, you watch people, their joys, their mistakes. It all builds up. Then you just pour it out on screen." The crowd claps, and Jimmy senses the moment. Time to go deeper, just like his audience loves. "Look, Bob, people today talk a lot about how hard it is to be real anymore," he says warmly. "All the social media, the trends. You're 81, and you still make films that make people cry and think. How do you hold on to that realness? Do you ever doubt yourself?" Robert falls silent for a moment. His eyes narrow, and the studio goes quiet. The audience senses the question hit something deep. "Doubt myself," he repeats slowly, his voice raspy but firm. "Every damn day, Jimmy. But you know what's worse than doubt? Pretending you've got all the answers. I don't do that. Applause explodes, but Jimmy feels a chill. He wanted honesty, but got something sharper. A voice whispers in his earpiece, "Ease up, Jimmy, keep the tone light." But he can't let go. Okay, but... I mean, the people here, they've all had moments where they wanted to give up. Jimmy continues, trying to return to warmth. You're a legend, Bob. Do you ever just want to go home, pour a cup of coffee, and say, "I'm done"? Or are you always this? Unbreakable. A quiet gasp ripples through the crowd. Robert leans back, his face hardening. Are you serious, Jimmy? He asks quietly, voice like steel. You think I'm sitting here to tell you how easy it all is? I'm not unbreakable. I'm human, and I don't like being turned into a cartoon. Hey, Bob, that's not what I meant. Jimmy stammers, his smile trembling. I just want people to see the real you. The real me? Robert cuts in, his voice slicing the air. If you want real, don't ask me questions like I'm some museum piece. I'm not here for that. He rips off his mic, tosses it onto the couch, and walks off stage. The audience freezes, then erupts into whispers. Jimmy stands under the spotlights, heart pounding, sweat beading on his temples. The dressing room door slams. Chaos. We'll be right back after the break. Jimmy forces out, waving at the camera. Backstage, Jimmy storms into the production room, where Linda, the executive producer, meets him with blazing eyes. What the hell was that, Jimmy? She hisses. You know De Niro hates being backed into a corner. I wanted it to be real. He snaps, wiping sweat off his brow. People love when we dig deep, Linda. They love respect. She cuts him off. And you just insulted a legend. Social media is already on fire. Fix it. Jimmy nods, but his mind is racing. He knows the internet won't forgive this. Some will call him tone deaf. Others will say he ruined the night. But worst of all, he feels ashamed. He didn't mean to hurt Robert, but he pushed too far because deep down he doubted himself, whether his questions were even worth asking. He walks toward De Niro's dressing room. The bodyguard frowns. He doesn't want to talk, the guard mutters. Tell him I want to apologize, Jimmy insists. A minute later, the door creaks open. Robert stands there cold, but tired. What do you want? He asks. I screwed up, Bob, Jimmy says, meeting his eyes. I didn't mean to offend you. Let me make it right. Not for the show, for you. You deserve better. Robert stays silent for a long moment, then lets out a quiet grunt. We'll see, he says and shuts the door. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio is burning with tension like a dry forest before a wildfire. The commercial break is still on, but the audience buzzes like a hive. People whisper to each other. Someone scrolls through their phone checking social media, where the first posts have already popped up. De Niro walked off Kimmel's show. And what the hell is Jimmy doing? The air smells of ozone from the stage lights and the faint perfume of the audience, who still can't recover from what just happened. Backstage, chaos reigns. Assistants run with tablets, producers whisper, and Jimmy stands near Robert De Niro's dressing room, feeling his pulse pounding in his temples. The door shut just a minute ago, but Robert's parting words, "We'll see," echo in his head like a challenge. Jimmy returns to the control room, where Linda, the lead producer, looks at him like he just set the studio on fire. Jimmy, this is a disaster, she hisses, clutching her phone, where tweets are multiplying like mushrooms after the rain. People are saying you humiliated De Niro. Others say he's overreacting. We're losing everyone, his fans and yours. I didn't humiliate him, Linda. Jimmy snaps back, but his voice trembles. I wanted people to see the real him. For him to open up. Open up? Linda rolls her eyes. You cornered him, Jimmy. And now we have 5 minutes to save the show. If De Niro doesn't come back, we're ending the night with a rerun of some old sketch. And trust me, the ratings won't survive that. Jimmy nods, but his thoughts are elsewhere. He knows this isn't just about ratings. He feels guilty, not for the show, but for hurting someone he respects. Robert De Niro isn't just a guest. He's the man whose films Jimmy watched in his youth, whose roles taught him that being genuine isn't just a word. And now Jimmy Kimmel made that man feel like a spectacle. I'll talk to him again, he says quietly. You got 3 minutes, Linda says, turning back to the monitors. Jimmy walks back to the dressing room. The security guard, a broad-shouldered man with a mustache, frowns but doesn't even ask this time. He just knocks on the door. A moment later, it opens, and Robert is standing there. His blazer is off, sleeves rolled up, and his eyes, like two dark lakes, are filled with exhaustion and something else. "Payne, you're not giving up, are you?" Robert asks, and his voice holds less anger than before. "I'm not," Jimmy says, meeting his gaze. "Bob, I didn't mean to offend you. I pushed too hard, because... hell, even I don't always know how to be real in this circus. But I respect you. And I want us to finish this conversation as people, not as a show." Robert looks at him for a long time, then steps aside, gesturing for him to enter. The dressing room is small, cluttered. A half-finished coffee on the table, a script with bookmarks, an old leather wallet. It smells like aftershave and paper. Robert sits down, gestures to the other chair. "All right," he says. "Talk." Jimmy inhales, trying to collect himself. He knows this isn't just a talk, it's a moment that could change everything. "I asked you that question about doubt not for laughs," he begins. "People out there, they look at you and see. I don't know a hero, but I thought, he's still human. He must have moments where everything falls apart. And I wanted them to see that. To feel like they're not alone." Robert scoffs slightly, but something new flickers in his eyes, curiosity. "You think I don't want to be seen as human?" he asks. "Jimmy, I've been trying to be myself my whole life. But when you point a camera at me and ask if I'm unbreakable, that's not a conversation. That's a trap." Jimmy nods, feeling Robert's words at the mark. "I get it," he says. "And I want to fix it. Not for the show. For you. And for them." He nods toward the door, meaning the audience. "They deserve something real." Robert sits in silence, tapping his fingers on the table. Then he speaks. "You want real? Fine. But I'm not going back out there to play by your rules." "Whose rules then?" Jimmy asks, his voice trembling slightly with hope. "Mine," Robert replies. "No script. No jokes. Just a conversation." Jimmy smiles, the first genuine smile of the night. "Deal." Back in the studio. The commercial break ends, and Jimmy walks out onto the stage alone. The crowd falls silent, sensing something is off. The spotlights are blinding, but he can see faces in the front rows. An elderly couple holding hands, a man in a plaid shirt frowning, a woman with gray hair clutching her purse. They're waiting. And Jimmy knows he can't let them down. "Friends," he begins, his voice shaking but no longer hiding behind humor. "Tonight, I made a mistake. I thought I knew how to have a real conversation, but I went too far. Robert De Niro is someone I deeply respect, and I hurt him. I want to apologize. To him. And to you." The audience stays silent, but in that silence, there is no anger, only attention. Jimmy takes a deeper breath. "I asked him to come back. Not for the show, but to talk. For real. And he agreed. But it's up to you. Do you want to hear that conversation?" The audience erupts in applause, not loud like at the start, but warm, like they're saying, "We're with you." Jimmy feels the weight on his chest ease a little, though the tension lingers. He knows Robert could still change his mind, and that social media is still on fire. The climax. The stage door opens and Robert walks out. No mic, no smile, but with a steady gaze. The audience freezes. Jimmy gestures for him to take a seat, but Robert stops center stage. "I don't like shows," he begins, his voice loud even without amplification. "But I love people. And if you want to know who I am, I'll tell you. Not as an actor. As a man who made mistakes, who fell and got back up." He pauses. And in that moment, a quiet sound rises from the audience, a sob. A woman in the third row, with gray hair and glasses, wipes her eyes with a tissue. Her husband places a hand on her shoulder, but his eyes are glistening too. Jimmy sees this, and his heart clenches. This isn't just a show. This is the moment when masks fall. "Bob," Jimmy says softly, "tell us. What do you want us to know?" Robert looks at him, then at the crowd. And he begins to speak. "I was afraid," he says. "Not of cameras, not of critics. I was afraid that one day I'd stop feeling. That I'd become just a role. And you know what saved me? People. My family. Friends. And even you," he nods toward the audience. You, who watch my films and find pieces of yourselves in them. The audience bursts into applause. But this time, it's not for the show. It's for the man standing before them, vulnerable and strong all at once. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio trembles with tension, but now it's not a storm. It's a quiet anticipation of something miraculous. The spotlight glows softer, as if someone dimmed it to give words more space. The audience, full of people over 55, sits holding its breath. Elderly couples hold hands. A man in a plaid shirt grips the armrest. A gray-haired woman who had been wiping away tears now looks at the stage with a faint smile. The air smells of warm stage wood and a subtle scent of flowers, someone left by the entrance. Social media is still buzzing, but the tone is shifting. Angry posts give way to surprise. Did that really just happen? Robert De Niro sits on the couch, shoulders relaxed, but eyes sharp, like a man who's seen it all, yet is still seeking the truth. Jimmy Kimmel, without his signature grin, looks more vulnerable than ever. His hands rest on his knees, fingers nervously gripping, not from fear, but from a deep desire not to ruin the moment. They've just begun a conversation, not the one planned in the script, but the one born from a mistake, from anger, and from sincerity. On stage, Robert finishes telling how fear stopped being his enemy when he realized that people don't just see an actor in his roles, they see themselves. The audience applauds, but gently, as if afraid to scare the moment away. Jimmy looks at him, and in his eyes is no showman, just a man who's just learned something. "Bob," he says, his voice slightly hoarse, "when you walked off stage, I thought it was the end. Not of the show, but something bigger. But you came back. Why?" Robert smiles, not wide, but warmly, like a man who hasn't let himself do that in a long time. "Because I know what mistakes are, Jimmy," he replies. "And I know what happens when people stop talking. You apologized. Not to the cameras, but to me. That means something." The audience erupts into applause, louder this time, but not for the show, for two people who found common ground where no one expected it. Jimmy feels warmth flood his chest. He wants to say something witty, like he usually would, but stops himself. Instead, he extends a hand. "Thank you, Bob," he says simply, "for giving me a chance." Robert looks at the hand, then at Jimmy, and he shakes it firmly like a friend. The audience rises, clapping on their feet. The woman with the handkerchief laughs through tears. Her husband claps, like he's trying to wake up all of Hollywood. The man in the plaid shirt nods as if to say, "That's how it's done." The climax. But it's not the end yet. Sensing that the moment needs a special close, Jimmy turns to the audience. "Friends," he says, and now his voice is steady but warm. "Tonight we all learned something. I thought I knew how to run a show, but I realized the most important thing is to listen. Not just to guests, but to you. And I want to do something we've never done before." He pauses and the room stills. Even Robert raises an eyebrow, not sure where this is going. "We've got a few more minutes on air," Jimmy continues. "And I want you, here in the studio, to ask Bob a question. Not me, you. Because this is your show just as much as it is mine." The audience gasps, then erupts in murmurs. Linda backstage clutches her head, but her eyes shine. She knows it's genius. Assistants quickly pass out microphones, and the first to rise is a man in the second row, elderly, with a gray beard and trembling hands. "Mr. De Niro," he begins, his voice shaking, but not from fear, from emotion. I lost my son many years ago. Your films, especially this new one, helped me feel like I wasn't alone. How do you find the strength to play roles that break the heart?" Robert freezes. His eyes shine, and for a moment it seems he won't answer. But then he leans forward, his voice soft but clear. "I'm sorry you went through that," he says. "I don't find strength. I just remember the people I loved, and I act for them. And for you." The man nods, eyes full of tears, but smiling. The audience applauds, and this time the clapping is a wave that washes away all barriers. The woman with the handkerchief raises her hand, and her question, about how Robert handles criticism, makes him laugh and share a story about how he once burned a negative review in the fireplace just to keep warm. The audience laughs, and the tension finally dissolves. The finale. The show's almost over, but no one wants to leave. Jimmy and Robert stands side by side on stage, looking at the crowd giving them a standing ovation. Backstage, Linda wipes away a tear. Assistants whisper that this is the best episode in years. Social media explodes. Kimmel and De Niro, forgiveness live on air. I cried with the audience. This is why I love America. When the cameras shut off, Robert turns to Jimmy. Not bad for a circus, he says with a barely there smile. Not bad for beginning, Jimmy replies, and they laugh quietly, like people who found something real. The studio slowly empties, but the audience lingers, chatting, sharing emotions. The woman with the handkerchief hugs her husband. The man in the plaid shirt stops by the exit to take a photo of the stage for the grandkids. Outside, Hollywood glows, but inside the studio, something greater remains. The feeling that tonight, they all got a little closer.